60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism. Are they wrong?
But that's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question and she comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense, and you edit that out and insert another answer to a different question that seems more cogent. No, but it's not that. It's editing things to make this deceptive editing.
Joe,
so in deceptive editing, you give people a different perception of who this candidate is than reality.
All right, but you got to explain.
But that's not objective journalism.
I know, but
that's campaigning for that person.
Right. Joe Rogan just lit up Bernie Sanders on his own podcast, and it was nothing short of explosive. Bernie showed up thinking he was in friendly territory, like one of those echo chambers where no one pushes back. Huge miscalculation. Rogan brought the heat, cutting through the noise and showing exactly why his show is the gold standard for unfiltered conversation. I've got all the juicy details coming your way. So, hit that like button, and let's jump straight into it.
Elon Musk, and I know Elon was on your show, and he's here in Austin, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And we could talk about Elon, but he spent $270 million to elect Trump as president. Okay. I think that's absurd that any one person...
What's the most someone donated towards the Harris campaign?
They spent a lot of money on Harris as well.
They spent $1.5 billion just over the course of a couple of months.
You got it. All right, let me talk about it. So I'm not here just to say it's a Republican. That's my point here.
Right.
Okay.
This is what happens when you marinate too long in your own echo chamber. Bernie Sanders, so accustomed to cozy platforms echoing his hatred for Trump and the ultra-wealthy, clearly assumed Joe Rogan's podcast would be more of the same. Big mistake. When Bernie tried to jab Elon Musk for allegedly donating over $200 million to Trump, he got hit with a brutal stat. Vice President Kamala Harris had hauled in a jaw-dropping $1.5 billion in just a few months. That bombshell landed, and Bernie scrambled, dodging, deflecting, and sidestepping the double standard like a pro-politician caught mid-spin. That's what makes Rogan's show different. It's not a cushy echo chamber. It's a truth grenade launcher. Sanders came expecting softballs, but Rogan was throwing heat.
What about the other the other lawsuit with the conversation that they had with Kamala Harris, where they edited the answers that she had to make it look more precise?
60 Minutes, they were suing 60 Minutes.
Yes.
Is, to my mind, historically, they've been around for a very long time. You know, they're not infallible, but I think you look at most objective people will say 60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism. Are they wrong?
But that's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question and she comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense, and you edit that out and insert another answer to a different question that seems more cogent.
Oh, this is just delicious. After getting wrecked by Joe Rogan, Bernie Sanders tried to claw back some dignity by shifting gears. This time, he took a jab at Donald Trump for suing 60 Minutes over their shady editing of Kamala Harris's interview. But Rogan wasn't having it. With a cool but pointed, "Not too fast, my friend," he cut him off. Rogan held the line, calling out 60 Minutes for what it was. Not just sloppy journalism, but flat-out deception. Sanders, clearly shaken, rushed to defend the outlet, praising 60 Minutes as a pillar of investigative reporting. Rogan wasn't buying it. He fired back, calling out the legacy media for getting a free pass just because they serve leftist narratives. And that right there is the woke left's go-to move. When the mask slips, they don't own it. They spin, pivot, and distract until the truth gets lost. But on Rogan's turf, that playbook gets shredded. So Bernie tries another angle.
Then you're walking down, you're walking down a dangerous path. Suing media has the impact of intimidating media. All right, if somebody sues you, all right, they're going to finish, all right?
Okay.
Somebody sues you, why not you? You could be sued tomorrow, right? Because you are doing this, you're too sympathetic to this.
Right.
And Joe, you did that, and they have a big law firm behind you, you're going to have to spend zillions of dollars defending yourself. You know what? Next time you do an interview, you say, maybe I'm not going to go in that area. Right?
No, but it's not that. It's editing things to make this deceptive editing.
Joe,
in deceptive editing, you give people a different perception of who this candidate is than reality.
All right, but you got to explain.
But that's not objective journalism.
I know, but
that's campaigning for that person.
Right, but
would you agree with that?
Sanders tried a classic move this time, emotional blackmail. He leaned in with, "If you support what Trump's doing, it could happen to you too," aiming to trap Joe Rogan with a fear-based appeal. The message was crystal clear: defend the media's bias and risk becoming the next political target. But Rogan didn't blink. He calmly tore the logic apart, pointing out that Sanders was mixing apples and oranges. Rogan laid it out. There's a massive difference between being sued for real, fair journalism and being called out for masquerading as neutral while pushing one candidate's agenda. One is an assault on press freedom. The other, a well-earned consequence. What Sanders didn't expect was that Rogan doesn't fold to emotional manipulation. He's not MSNBC. He doesn't squirm when guilt gets weaponized. And that's exactly why this interview turned into a train wreck for Bernie. He came to sermonize. Rogan came with receipts.
I don't have those details. I don't know that I agree with your analysis of it. I don't know enough.
I think that's universally accepted that that's what they did.
And you got to tell me why he is suing ABC. Why he's suing Meta.
Let's just talk about the 60 Minutes
no,
one
but
first.
No, but it's not just
we could go to ABC, but I'm not aware of that one either.
Well, George Stephanopoulos said something that he didn't like. But the point is,
what did Stephanopoulos say?
I can't remember. It was I honestly don't remember. But
I think what he was saying was factually incorrect about the results of one of Trump's trials.
All right. Guess what? If I were to sue everybody who said things that were factually incorrect about me, I'd be suing people zillions of times.
And this is the guy who wants to run the country. A man who can't give a straight answer to even one tough question. It's honestly laughable. Bernie Sanders keeps showing us he's no leader. He's a political performer completely consumed by Trump derangement syndrome. His fixation on Donald Trump blinds him to logic, consistency, and basic fairness. Instead of dealing in facts, he leans on emotion, outrage, and grandstanding. Trump is suing ABC and other outlets for allegedly using deceptive, manipulative tactics to sabotage his campaign. That's not an assault on free speech. It's a stand against calculated misinformation. There's a major difference between reporting facts and warping reality to serve a political agenda. But Sanders either can't see that, or worse, chooses not to. Because when Trump enters the picture, all reason flies out the window. Integrity? Gone. Consistency? Nowhere in sight. Sanders isn't trying to lead America. He's trying to settle a grudge, and that's a dangerous game.
My concern is when you have media organizations that are purported to be objective, and then they say things that are defamatory and factually incorrect, and they should know that before they say it. What other course does a person have other than a lawsuit? And isn't it important that you shine the light on what is a political bias?
Then the way
we're from an organization that you would hope would be objective.
Joe Rogan nails it once again, and what's truly admirable is how fiercely he holds Bernie Sanders accountable. No softballs, no freebies. He calls out every vague comment, every shaky claim, and never lets Sanders wiggle out with spin. That's the kind of journalism we need. Real accountability, zero bias. If more media followed Rogan's example, Americans would finally see who's real and who's just acting. The fakes wouldn't survive 5 minutes under that kind of pressure. Now let's be clear, no one's saying the government should start punishing the press. A free media is absolutely essential. But when a media outlet consistently pumps out lies and propaganda, there should be fallout, whether that's legal, reputational, or financial, because constant deception isn't journalism, it's manipulation. And the American public deserves far better. Bad reporting shouldn't be protected. It should be exposed.
Fake news media is really hitting new lows, so eager to restart their debunked Russian conspiracy theories that they somehow managed to mix up this man, Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, with this dude, Vladimir Putin. Easy mistake to make if you've lost all reasoning, any semblance of objectivity. When you are an activist journalist for MSNBC, here are some of the corrections.
Last night, The Last Word reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network in which she said Trump was good friends with the world leader. Now, we said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview was subsequently released, and it showed that Gabbard was referring to Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi.
Real fact-based journalism is supposed to stop disasters like this before they happen, but clearly, MSNBC missed the memo. If they had bothered to watch the full interview once it dropped, they could have avoided the embarrassment of walking back their reckless narrative, but no, they charged ahead, obsessed with connecting Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin at every possible angle. Scoring political points mattered more than getting the story right. In their frenzy, they trashed every journalistic standard. Objectivity, gone. Verification, ignored. Fairness? Out the window. What we got instead was a public train wreck of media malpractice. And this isn't some harmless mistake. It's a symptom of something much worse. Too many outlets today aren't doing journalism. They're doing activism with a press badge, spinning half-truths into sensational headlines. Until that changes, these humiliating retractions won't stop. They'll just keep getting louder and uglier.
So Tulsi Gabbard mentions that Trump is good friends with a world leader, and they not only just assumed she's talking about Vladimir Putin, but then they report that as if it were fact on television. That's what happened. Let's hear one more correction from MSNBC on that issue.
Last night, we reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network, in which she said that Trump was good friends with a world leader. We said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview shows that Gabbard was referring to Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi.
So these are the media outlets Bernie Sanders is so eager to defend. Platforms so shamelessly biased they've stopped pretending otherwise. It's a joke. Sanders has spent years branding himself as the champion of fairness, fighting for equal opportunity, leveling the playing field between rich and poor. But when it comes to the media, that standard vanishes. Where's his demand for journalistic neutrality? Where's the outrage when the press pushes agendas instead of facts? Nowhere. And that silence speaks volumes. The truth is, Sanders doesn't want an unbiased press. He wants one that mirrors his views. That's not standing up for truth. That's pushing for control. It reveals a massive contradiction in his so-called mission for justice. You can't preach fairness while defending propaganda. You can't claim to value truth while making excuses for spin. If Sanders genuinely cared about integrity, he'd go after media bias just as hard as he goes after billionaires, but he doesn't. And that tells you everything you need to know.
The worst vice presidential candidate we have seen, the uniquely awful Tim Walz, Tampon Tim. Remember him? He had all sorts of delusions of being vice president. Now he has delusions of being a presidential candidate, and he thinks he's a tough guy. Here he responds to media pundits who mocked his lack of masculinity.
This
How do you
notion
fight it?
this
I
notion
think
of
I could kick most of their. I do think that if they wanted you, I know we can outrun them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
Good luck with that, Tim. I think Judge Janine has you covered.
While Bernie Sanders was busy cozying up to the woke media on Joe Rogan's podcast, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was out doing something just as absurd, challenging Republican men to a physical fight. Yes, seriously. Apparently, Walz thinks proving his manhood means talking tough and bragging about changing truck tires, as if that's the ultimate measure of masculinity. But here's the reality. Real masculinity isn't about fists or grease-stained hands. It's about having the guts to stand for what's right, especially when it's unpopular, especially when the woke crowd is screaming in your face. Being a man means defending the truth, owning your responsibilities, and staying grounded when others cave to pressure. Sadly, Walz and others like him have confused macho theatrics with real courage, and in doing so, they've turned manhood into a hollow performance. Strip away the bravado, and one thing becomes painfully clear. The left's obsession with narrative over truth is backfiring. From Sanders squirming under Rogan's questions to Walz's comical display of faux toughness, the cracks are widening. People are catching on. We don't need a media circus, emotional manipulation, or political theater. We need truth, accountability, and actual leadership. Thankfully, voices like Rogan's are making it harder for the pretenders to hide. And that wraps up today's video. If you liked it, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.